Hello again, everyone. It is Gordon Majak here, back with some perspective on the idea of who creates, or who co-creates, I guess, if you prefer. Who is responsible for creating and co-creating your life? And as I mentioned the other day when I first brought this subject up in my very first video there on the channel last week, I was saying that it's easy for us to take credit for the good things in our life, the successes in our life. It's easy for our ego to say, yeah, I did that. I'm responsible for that. But it's not so easy, usually, for most of us, or for all of us at sometimes, I suppose. It's not so easy to take credit for the parts of our life that seem to be unbalanced or lacking or not as fulfilling, or whatever criteria you want to use. It's much, much harder, I have found, certainly in my own life, to take responsibility, accountability, and ownership for creating those unfulfilling parts of our life. So how do we do it the other way? How do we create from the highest possible place? Well, if you accept the premise that I raised the other day, that ultimately at the highest level of reality, quote unquote, whatever reality is, right? If you accept the premise that at the highest level of reality, all is one, and there is just one infinite, eternal consciousness that we call God, and that our individual soul, which was created by God, is just an aspect of God, and that our personality, our 3D reality, this person sitting here in front of you, Gordon Majak, is an aspect of that soul, then it would appear that there is a direct line between me and God, correct? Can't really argue that, right? If the soul comes from God, the God created the soul, and I come from that soul, then there's a direct connection there, and I should be able to access those higher states, right? Now, certainly, your ego, your three-dimensional self down here on planet Earth, your ego is useful for some things, certainly. No question about that. But is it always where you want to create or co-create your life from? Is that always the level that you want to co-create from? Certainly not. The question is, how do you access those higher levels? If we have an immortal spirit, the is, and we have a physical three-dimensional representation of that immortal spirit here in this world, in the form of this biological entity. You'll remember I brought up the idea of ISBES, immortal spirit, biological entity. How do we access those higher parts of ourselves? How do we create and make decisions and choices from that higher part? And here's what I think, here's some useful information in that regard. If you take your normal choices and decision-making process, it's great to be a smart person. You may be very intelligent, you may be very resourceful, you may even have some wisdom. But wisdom is not the same as knowledge. Wisdom is not just accumulated information that you've stored away in your brain. And you may be a wise person to a certain extent, but the wisdom we really want is that divine wisdom, right? We want that higher wisdom. We want that wisdom that comes straight through our intuition from the higher realms and right into our conscious mind. And we know that we can access that by consciously connecting to God through our soul and through our intuition, right? We know we can access that higher wisdom. And we also know that no matter how loving we may be as three-dimensional individuals, we also know that we are capable of accessing higher love. We're capable of experiencing and transmitting and internalizing, integrating that higher love that also comes straight through from God, right? But how do we do that? Here's what I think. To access those higher realms, what it really comes down to, and I don't take credit for this, by the way, this was something that I learned from outside of myself, but it resonated with me so strongly. And that is this. Ultimately, it comes down to two choices. You're either going to live your life from that higher perspective in service to others, whether it's in service to other people or in service to humanity or in service to God, or you're going to live and make decisions and choose the paths in your life from the lower perspective of service to self. The service to self is obviously the ego, right? And again, there are times and places for the ego. You probably don't need to engage your higher self if you're just going to the grocery store, right? Your ego is perfectly capable of driving your physical body to the grocery store, right? But what about the interactions that you may have with other people or other life forms? What about certainly your interactions with those unseen realms? Is it best to come from a place of ego, or is it best to come from that higher love and that higher wisdom? And I think that line that is drawn, not by us, not by our choice necessarily, but it's there drawn for us, and we have to choose which way we want to fall on that line. I think that line is very simple. Is it service to self, or is it service to the greater consciousness? I believe that when you access those higher realms through your intuition, the intuition leads you straight to the higher wisdom. And what leads you to love? That is, can you access higher dimensions of love through your ego? That would be a tough one, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it just turn into a competition then, and I'm this and I'm that and me? That doesn't seem like that would really be the place that we would want to access higher love. It seems to me, I should say, that in order to access higher love, that's where the service to the whole has to come in, doesn't it? That's where you access the greater consciousness. In service of the greater consciousness, you surrender to that higher consciousness, the higher part of yourself, the soul, which is connected directly to God. You surrender to the higher consciousness in the form of God, or all that is, whatever you want to call it. You surrender to those higher aspects and allow them to flow through you. And the way you do that is by consciously connecting. It can be, when it comes to the wisdom part, we talked the other day about consciously connecting through your intuition. When it's the loving part, I think a lot of that can grow out of meditation, but it's also just how you see the world. It's how do you treat the people around you? How do you treat the people that you come in contact with? What kind of relationship do you have with even people that you don't know? Like I said, it's one thing to get in your car and drive to the grocery store. You don't need to be a champion meditator or a champion spiritual guru to get in your car and go to the store. But what if you wind up at the store and you wind up in some sort of intense or charged up or some sort of quasi-dysfunctional interaction with other people? I don't think that ego is really going to do you a whole lot of good there. That's where you really want to be coming through from that higher perspective. And we can choose to do that. We do it through that conscious connection to God. We nurture that conscious connection through meditation and through various other practices of surrendering and going into that space and allowing that space, putting ourselves in that space and allowing that energy to fill us up, vibrating with that energy, raising our frequency to those frequencies of higher love and higher wisdom. And then when you do come back around to making the choices and decisions that will create or co-create, if you will, the conditions of your life, when you're doing it from that higher place, that's where the power really comes from. That's when you really can create what you would call miracles in your own life. That's where it comes from. That's when higher wisdom, when your decisions and your choices in life and creating your life and designing your life and taking responsibility for it, when your decisions are guided by higher wisdom and higher love, the actions that result from those two things together, the wisdom plus the love, the actions that result are necessarily going to be from a higher vibration. And that is the space, that is the level, that's the consciousness that you want to create from, because that is where the magic, the real magic, is going to come from. And I've just seen it. I will certainly give you examples of this as we go along. I've just seen it over and over and over. It just never fails. If you want to live in that space of consciousness with that higher love and higher wisdom, and you want your actions to be guided by that, you have to consciously connect with those higher realms. And is it easy? No. Is it a switch that you just flip and then everything after that just flows from that? Nope. It's a constant challenge all the time, because situations will push your buttons, other people will push your buttons, circumstances will push your buttons, things out there in the world outside of you will push your buttons. There's a million ways it can go wrong. It's a constant process. It's a constant work in progress for us to do that. But it starts with making the choice to consciously connect with those higher realms through meditation, through your intuition, through opening your heart, in service to others, in service to humanity, in service to the universe, in service to God, and not in service to the me, 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 me. You know, it's pretty hard for the me, me, me ego to, well, not hard. I would argue it's impossible, that it's impossible for the me, me, me ego to step back and get a big enough picture to come from that space. I don't think it's really capable of doing it. I think it only comes through surrender. So we will talk more about this. This is a constant, ongoing conversation that I have, and a dialogue that I have with myself. Again, it's not easy. It's a constant challenge, but that is the path. That is the path. Divine wisdom, divine love equals divine action, or divinely guided action, and that's where that real magic comes from in creating your life and co-creating your life. We will have more on that. I wanted to get that out there today for you. I will be back tomorrow to talk about Mother's Day. I mentioned earlier that this is the first Mother's Day that I've had without my mom here on the physical plane, as she passed just a couple months ago. So we will get to that tomorrow, but for today I just wanted to talk about creating our life and who's responsible for our life, and the way to shortcut that system by cultivating that conscious connection with God. That's where it starts, if you ask me. All right, I'm going to go finish up my nice walk here this afternoon. I will be back with you tomorrow. Take care. Peace and love to all of you guys. I appreciate you for watching my channel. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. You know, a lot of these concepts are just that. They're concepts. It's not an argument. We're not writing term papers here. We're not doing PhD theses, right? We're just sort of hacking our way through this jungle, through the spiritual jungle, to try to get to these truths. And just as I do it for myself, I want to share it with you guys. And it's important to know where you're at on that journey as well. So by all means, jump in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I will be back tomorrow to talk about Mother's Day. Have a wonderful evening. I'm going to try to stay up late enough tonight to see those northern lights. So I heard they were pretty spectacular. I will see you guys tomorrow. Happy Mother's Day weekend. All you mothers out there, you know who you are. See you tomorrow, guys. Bye.